In this video, we're going to discuss how to write your introductory paragraph for a definition essay. And as we've talked about already, the three parts of that intro paragraph are topic, purpose, and thesis. And we're going to look at how to write each of those parts of the intro for a definition essay. What are the best strategies for that? So to establish the topic, first of all, you need to make sure that you're introducing the term that you're defining early on. It should be somewhere in the opening sentence, often near the beginning of it, but certainly somewhere in the opening sentence, and it needs to be in a concrete form as a noun or a noun phrase, so it's a thing. People get the idea that this is the thing that the spotlight is on here in this essay. This is what we're defining. Now, the sentence you use to do that should establish your topic, and it needs to establish why you're writing this extended definition essay and not just using a dictionary definition, right? And we need to sort of provide a rationale for why we need more explanation than just that. So there are a couple ways to do that. One is just to explain that this term is not easily defined. So in the sentence that you introduce the term, you're sort of saying, well, there's controversy or ambiguity about this term and how it should be defined, or it's just not very well known. People don't really know what it is. And then you can give a couple examples that demonstrate that the term is not very well understood or controversial, ambiguous. Or you could explain how someone else defines the term, such as in an article. And this would be a great place to use an article from our reader, to quote from that and show how that article discusses or defines the term. If you do that, your opening sentence should introduce the author and the title of the article, and then provide a little quote from the article that shows how that article defines or discusses the term. So this topic section should be well developed but streamlined, so no more than 3 or 4 sentences max, because we need to get to the definition. This is just sort of explaining why we need to define the term in an extended format, and it needs to be clear what the term is at the beginning. All right, so next we're going to indicate the purpose. So that means presenting the question or the issue the essay is addressing. And for a definition essay, that's very easy, because the question is, well, how should this term be defined? That could be in the form of a rhetorical question. You could just say, well, so how should we define whatever the term is? More commonly, people will use a statement just asserting that this term needs to be more clearly defined, better understood. And you can kind of transition into that saying, well, based on the examples that we just looked at or how someone else defines it, it's clear that we need to have a better understanding of this term. And that's just going to be one sentence, because you want that to be boiled down into a clear, crystallized, a unifying purpose. Then we come to the thesis, the most important part. So after a brief transition, we want to begin the thesis, at least early on in the thesis, with the term that you're defining, and then state the specific criteria for defining it. And in a definition essay, nothing is more important than the criteria, because that's how you define the term. So in your pre-writing, that's what you need to come up with. You need to know what are going to be the 2, 3, 4 criteria I'm going to use to define this term, and you're going to put those in the thesis. And you want to be very clear and specific about those criteria so that someone can just read that thesis statement and know exactly what each criteria is and not have to wait later. You want people to get it. Later, you're going to prove that you're right, that they should be the criteria. Now, people need to know what they are, and it needs to be clear. You also want to be very parallel in laying out those criteria. So a good strategy is using a series of verb-first clauses. And this thesis should be concise, just 1 or 2 sentences long, and really it should be 1, preferably, because you should have a structure of your term somewhere at the beginning of the thesis, your criteria, at the end. All right, so in our next video, we're going to look at some examples of good and bad introduction paragraphs for a definition essay.